Hi everyone, my name is Julie. This is Keep Calm with Books and Coffee. I talk about books on this channel, mainly books about magic. And today we are going to start my October bingo board wrap up. So if you missed my first version of this in September, what we're going to do with this vlog is basically do a wrap up on the go and talk about the bingo board squares that I fill in for my TBR game every month, and also kind of wrap up the books as we go, since I often forget about what's going on in these books when I don't talk about them for a month, and it's just been kind of a struggle for me to create. There's a bug. There's a big bee flying around that's distracting me, but I typically forget a lot about the books and also don't love filming wrap-ups like I used to. So we're going to try this for a while and see how it goes. So I have my first two updates for you. First, I reread All Systems Red by Martha Wells for the first Fablen prompt, and this was a fun reread. I didn't remember how this book ended. In it, we're following Murderbot, who is a security unit who's supposed to protect the crew that they are assigned to, but they have hacked their governor module, so they basically are rogue and can do what they want, but they choose to continue to protect humans. They just really also want alone time, and I absolutely loved this first installment the first time I read it, and I enjoyed it again on reread. And I didn't remember how this ended, so I wanted to reread it before I reread the second book and then continued on with the series. So this was a fun reread. I enjoyed it a lot. I listened to the audiobook. And then the second update I have is that I have definitely watched a baseball game. So my bingo board is looking like this. These first two squares are marked off. I have watched a lot of baseball games, and a lot of them have been great, and a lot of them have been bad, and October baseball is just meant to break your heart, honestly. So yeah, so that's been fun. But that is the start to this vlog. That's my first couple of updates. So that's where we're gonna start and see how the rest of this month goes. Hello everyone. So it is quite a bit later. I think my first update was like October 4th or something like that, and it is now the 14th. So we've had a bit of a time since I talked to you. So I was very busy with work, and I also went to just had a little girls trip one weekend, so I have been very busy. I have had a chance to read the books that I need to for the prompts for Fablen. I was a little bit behind, but I'm going to update you on my bingo board and what I've read. So the first thing I have to talk about is that I have finished A Conspiracy in Belgravia by Sherry Thomas. This is the book that I had to complete for Fablen. The prompt was that it was a mystery, and then we also had an extra challenge of that I had to roll to figure out which prompt I was using. So I was really hoping that I would get the mystery one, and I ended up getting it because I wanted to read Conspiracy in Belgravia. I had the audiobook, and that worked out well. And I also used this for the prompt of a second book in a series for my bingo board. So this is the second book in the Lady Sherlock series. In the first one, we follow Charlotte Holmes, as she leaves home and establishes herself outside of her family's influence in order to live how she wants to live. And she wants to pretend that she has a brother named Sherlock Holmes, and she basically listens to the cases and then conceals herself and figures it out herself, but she pretends that it's her brother doing it. And this was such a good follow-up. I found this so interesting. There were so many threads of this story. I absolutely just loved it. Had a great time with it. I really hope that I will continue this series again soon before the next, because I read this first book about a year ago, so I'd like to continue the series a little bit faster than that. But I had a really good time with this. The mystery was just complex, interesting. The characters were so good. I just had a good time, and there's so much tension in this book between some of the characters that was just delicious. So I had a really good time reading this one. and just really enjoyed it. The second prompt, I read Teen Titans Raven by Cami Garcia. This is the first in the Teen Titans graphic novel series that started a few years ago, and I got this for free. I borrowed it from my library, so that was my second prompt for Fablen. And then I think I used this for illustrated cover on my bingo board. So an excellent I have read this before. It was a reread, but I really enjoy this adaptation. It's for young adults, but it's just a fun series. It's somewhere in between like comic and graphic novel. Like, I think it's classified under graphic novel, but it really does feel a bit like a comic book with all of the characters we're following and the style and everything. So lots of fun here. Will be continuing my reread because I'd like to actually like get deeper into this series than I have before. Another bingo board square that I can check off right now is that I have cleaned up my Pango store. I actually sold a bunch of stuff, so that forced me to kind of pay attention to it again. And then I went through and I made sure I had everything listed. I took down some listings, getting ready to kind of donate or like put books in little free libraries or something. So I have done this. I actually was surprised it was in better order than I thought. So I'm happy that I had this on there, but I'm also glad that it was in better shape than I thought. And my final update is for the audiobook square of my bingo board. And this I used Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. This is one that I had to read recently for a discussion that I'm participating in. So this is a sci-fi in a future setting where nuclear war has destroyed Earth. And an alien race has taken the surviving humans off planet onto their ship, and they are basically trying to give humanity a chance to like restart by prepping them to go back onto the planet, back onto Earth. And this is the story of Lilith, who is one of the first to be awoken and sort of someone who has to try and help humanity recognize these aliens and kind of develop the skills to go back to Earth. And it's a really interesting book. It was a fascinating sci-fi. It feels very classic sci-fi in that there isn't a ton of explanation of the world and how we got here. Like, we just know there was a war on Earth. We don't know much about the war overall, like what happened or anything like that. It just feels very classic sci-fi in that way that it's not quite as in-depth as some sci-fi as I would expect currently, but I really enjoyed it overall. I do think it was a little confusing. Like, I did have a hard time. I'm counting this as my audiobook square, but I also immersion read a lot of this. I picked it up once I got a copy and spent time listening and reading it, so I understood it a little better. But I did enjoy it, and I'm going to use this for the last day 2 prompt of Fablen, and that is, what was this prompt? Oh, it was a book that garnered a lot of attention, and Octavia E. Butler herself is just like a author who I think has gotten a lot of attention, and this year this works for one of our fantasy board squares, so I saw a lot of people adding it because it counts for hard mode. And then also just like in my own life, I have discussed this a lot, and it's gotten a lot of attention from the indie bookstore where we're going to discuss it. So I counted it for that prompt. So we are done with day 2 prompts for Fablen. We're done with quite a bit of my bingo board at this point because I haven't updated you in a while, but that's just because I was busy. But I'm having a good time with what I'm reading. I'm currently reading a nonfiction, as well as I started Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, which I'm really enjoying. I put this book off for so long, just simply, I think I was intimidated by it, but also it's YA, and I can kind of go back and forth about YA, and I wanted to read it when I was in a space that I like really was like willing to kind of just read a YA book, if that makes sense, and I'm loving it. I'm having a great time. So I'm going to continue on with that. I'm kind of alternating between them today. I have a day off, so I'm kind of just reading a chapter of each one and kind of going back and forth so that I make a little bit of progress in each one. And then I'd also like to maybe start another book today. So we'll see if that happens, but those are my updates for now.
Riders crunched on the gravel outside the Montgomery Milne Company, and a young federal agent stepped out.
Hello everyone, so I have updates for you for my TBR game as well as Fablen since I'm participating in both. I have decided I might play the TBR harvest boards for the rest of the year after Fablen. I just am trying to do too much and I really want to focus on paring down my TBR in the last 2 months of the year. Like, I don't have a plan to participate in any readathons in December, and I'm probably only participating in Danny's bucket listathon since that's really casual. And just like no more competitive readathons for the rest of the year, simply because while Fablen and Mystic have been so fun, I'm just feeling a little tired. So I do have updates both, like I said, for Fablen and my TBR game. I don't have any task updates. The last one I have to do is go to a new coffee shop, and I haven't gotten a chance to do that yet, but I will. I swear I'm gonna get to where I want to go. But my bookish updates are as follows. So I first finished Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is my TBR vet pick since I've had this on my TBR since 2020. That's when I purchased a copy of it, and I've been wanting to read it since before then. And this is the story of Yadriel, who is a trans boy living in California. He has been trying to show his family that he has the magic necessary to be a brujo and participate fully in those traditions, but his family's having a hard time accepting his trans identity. So he decides to do a ceremony without them, like to fully prove this, and when he does, that's successful, but then something happens that he has to use his magic again to summon a spirit, and this wrong spirit appears. Instead, he summons Julian to him, and the two of them have to figure out why this happened, and they have a little trio that goes through this book and tries to figure out why this is happening, why they can't find the spirit they were looking for, and what's going on in their community. And I absolutely loved this. The atmosphere is so fantastic. It is so rich with culture and family and characters. I had such a good time reading it. The audiobook is excellent, and it was such like a joy to read and so emotional. Like, I got to about the 70% mark and I knew this book was going to wreck me, and it did. I like was laying in bed listening to the end of the audiobook, and just like tears were just like streaming down my face, because like I knew what was gonna happen. Like, I knew where we were going. At the beginning of this book, he summons a spirit, so you like know what's happening. But at the same time, there is an element of this where like I could sort of see some of the plot coming, but really the way Aiden Thomas built this story in this book, I didn't mind. I had a great time like reading the book and just enjoying it so much. The characters were amazing. Our little trio of Julian, Yadriel, and Maritza were just like top tier trios. They were so funny and fun, but also just like teenagers, so well characterized, while also having to deal with this like serious situation. Our trio of Yadriel, Maritza, and Julian were just fantastic. Like, they were a top tier trio. They were so much fun. They balanced each other out really well. There was a lot of humor in this book, even though we're dealing with some pretty serious stuff. And I just really appreciated seeing all the representation of identity and sexuality, and also just like the way we explored all of that. So I had a great time. I just had a great time. I'm really disappointed in myself that I haven't read this book before. I have heard that Aiden Thomas is writing a sequel to this, which I didn't know when I started it, but I have been like informed of that while I was reading it. So I'm excited to see what that is, and I will definitely be checking out Aiden Thomas in the future because I had a great time reading this. And this counted for the Fablen prompt for the search, and this counted for the Fablen prompt that I had to read a book that was on my TBR. So that's what I counted this for. Then my next pick was Persuasion by Jane Austen. One of our Fablen prompts was a comfort read, so this was on my TBR for the month, but I don't think I had put it anywhere specific, if I remember correctly. I just kind of like said I wanted to read this sometime this fall because I tend to love to read Persuasion in the fall. Basically, the start of this book, we talk about the Crofts. So I should tell you what this is about. If you don't know, in this we're following Anne Elliot, who is the daughter of a baronet who has overspent. He's very in debt, and therefore they have to rent their estate to someone else. So Anne is getting ready to move out of her home, and the renters are going to take over, and these renters happen to be the in-laws of the man she almost married 8 years ago. And therefore this man, Captain Wentworth, comes back into her life after Anne was persuaded by a family friend not to marry him 8 years ago. So the two of them end up in the same circle again, and it's the story of how they, are reacquainted, and it's a Jane Austen novel, so it's a story of how they fall in love again. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and I say that it is my favorite comfort read of all time because it just absolutely makes my heart glow every single time I read it and reread it, and I love it so much. I love to reread it in the fall because the renters, Captain Wentworth's sister and her husband, take over at Michaelmas, which is at the end of September, and then we end the novel I think in like February or March. So it takes place over those like 6 months of the fall and winter season. So it just feels very fallish to me, and also it is a bit it's a bit melancholy, especially at the beginning. It's a bit like just kind of sad. Anne is a bit sad. She's a bit just her spirits are rather low through much of the start of the book, so it just feels kind of like a slow fall, like winter novel, and I love the atmosphere of it. I love the way the story builds, like how we meet all these characters and dive in and out of their lives and explore it. I would say it's one of Austen's like larger casts because like there are so many characters in here that we meet and explore, and I have such a good time reading it every time. So yeah, and this time I listened to the audiobook by Cynthia Erivo, and that was put out in 2023, and I'm wondering, I don't remember listening to this version before, but I will listen to it again because it was an excellent audio production. Her voice was just so perfect for this story, and the way she read this story just brought even more like emotions to me. Like I cried like twice while reading this book, and I have read it many a time without crying, although I do usually cry at like one point. But so I really enjoyed her rendition of the novel. I've listened to a lot of different ones at this point, and this is one of the better ones that I have listened to. So really a top tier audio production. Then my last update, and the second, both Persuasion and this next book were not on my bingo board at all. They're just counting for Fablen. So this one was to count for a person on the cover, and I picked this up, and it's called The Next One Is For You by Ali Watkins, and it is a true story of guns country in the IRA's secret American army. I picked this up recently because my local indie bookstore had it as their nonfiction book club pick for the month, and when I was there it caught my eye, and I was talking to the cashier, and she said that the book club stayed 5 hours talking about this book. So I was like, I already have an interest in this because I am by no means an expert or anything, but I studied abroad in Northern Ireland for a bit, and I just kind of have like a special interest in Northern Ireland. So I was interested in this, and then it's also the connection of how firearms from the US ended up in Northern Ireland in the 60s and 70s. So it was very, very interesting. I had a fascinating time reading it. I can see why people talked about this for hours and hours because there was so much information packed in here. It was very interesting. I don't really know if I have a rating for this because sometimes nonfiction is really hard to rate because I don't want to rate experiences or anything like that, but the organization, the research, the detail, all of that good stuff was just really, really good, and I was really compelled to read this, and I I haven't finished a nonfiction all year, I don't think, maybe one. So I've been meaning to get back into my like nonfiction reading one a quarter, and this was like a really compelling one to like get that started for me, because now I've already borrowed another one from the library to try to keep that going. So yeah, but very, very interesting, and something that I am glad that I picked up and that they kind of sold to me, because I hadn't heard of this before, and it definitely got immediately on my radar and I read it immediately. So my bingo board currently looks like this. I have to go to a new cafe at some point, new coffee shop, and I also have to start a new series. And if push comes to shove and I don't get anything else started that is a series, I can count Dawn for that space, since Dawn is the start of a trilogy. But since my bingo board is relatively small this month, it was 9 spaces, and I think 3 of them were task prompts. I'm trying to just count 1 book per space. That's not always the rule, but that's what I'm trying to do this month. So we shall see how that works out. Yeah, those are my updates for you for now. Like I said, this has been a long update. This has been a rambly update because I had a lot to talk about, but yeah, I'll talk to you all later. Hello friends, so I have a couple of updates for you. It is almost the end of October. We're not quite there yet. We're getting there very, very quickly. My first update is not bingo board related. It is just that I have finished, nope, I didn't finish. I DNF'd The City of Brass. I read a couple of chapters of this and I was hesitant to read it at all because I heard mixed things and people that I tend to agree with didn't necessarily like it. And I read a couple of chapters and just I was not grabbed, so I've decided to DNF this one. And then my other pick is The Whispering Night by Susan Dennard, which is the third and final book in the Illuminaries series. And this felt especially appropriate to read in Fablen because it takes place in the Forest of Nightmares, and we are traipsing through the Forest of Nightmares. So I thought it was appropriate to read this month. It's also finishing a series, and I'm just really happy. I really, really enjoyed this. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. I really liked how we dug deeper into the world and explored more and wrapped up. Like, there's so many pieces to wrap up in this series, and Susan Dennard did such a good job of wrapping them up and like exploring them in a way that made them feel complete and so well done and emotional. It was excellent. I really, really loved it. I can't wait to reread this series and catch even more of it, but I love this series. I think the Illumicrate versions are absolutely stunning, and I had a great time. Had an absolutely phenomenal time. So I don't think that fills anything out on my bingo board, but those are 2 books that I have read / tried to read recently. So those are my updates for now. Hello everyone, happy November 1st. We have made it to the end of Fablen. We have completed, well, not quite completed, but mostly completed the bingo board for October. And I just have a few updates for you. So I didn't hit this last square technically because I did not go to a new cafe. However, what ended up happening was I worked a lot of weekends this month, and therefore I ended up using my Sundays as a lot of rest and recovery days, or I had something else social on those days. So I didn't have a lot of time to go to cafes like I was hoping, simply because I didn't have the time or the energy to, go, and I was trying to save money a little bit. So anyway, the point being, I ended up buying a new type of like iced coffee from the grocery store that I could make at home, kind of experimenting with that. And so I did something related to this square, but I didn't end up going to a new cafe, but I would like to. So hopefully I get to that at some point in November. Let's do my November update, or my final October reads updates before I get into anything else. So I think I forgot to tell you that I reread Fruits Baskets Volume 2 by Netsuke Takaya. This is the second bound volume. This is the collector's edition. This is volumes 3 and 4 in the original series, and I had a great time rereading this. Some things don't age quite as well, but I still have a very soft place in my heart for this series. It's just one that I have reread many times I've watched the anime or the adaptation, and I love it. So this was a fun reread. Then I also ended up rereading Clean Sweep by Lona Andrews for day 4, I believe. This was one of my host favorites, and I ended up rereading this just simply because I needed something familiar and kind of short to read, because towards the end of the month I really started to feel burned out by everything. So I ended up rereading this and enjoying it. I think I used this for weapon on the cover because Dina's broom is a weapon and it's on the cover. So that was part of it. And I love this book. I love this book so much. It's a 4-star, I think, overall, but I adore Dina. I adore the characters and the story and everything in the world. Like, this is one of my favorite blends of magic and sci-fi and space and fantasy, and it's just so fun to read. So I had a good time doing that. I also reread, I didn't realize quite how many rereads I had on this pile. I reread Lore Olympus Volume 1 for a book I forgot about, because I have been meaning to reread this series all year and pick up the next volumes, and I have forgotten about it. So I was looking for a graphic novel or something I could read towards the end of the month here, kind of, and I ended up picking this up, so that was a fun time. And then I also reread Artificial Condition by Martha Wells, which is the second Murderbot book. So I ended up taking the time to reread that because Goodreads tells me that I read the first 2 volumes of this series, but I simply did not remember what happened and where we were, because I wanted to go into book 3, but I simply could not remember what we did. So I have completed that reread. I'm ready to move into new space in that series. So that's my wrap up for my bingo board and for Fablen, everything I read in the month of October. So we have completed that. Now I'm going to talk a little bit here about my plans for November, because I haven't put out a video in like a week or so, probably almost 2 till this goes up, maybe not quite that long. But I didn't put up a TBR. I filmed a TBR, but I didn't like it. I was gonna play my bingo board game, started that, and I just wasn't feeling very inspired. I was feeling just like none of the prompts were ones that I was really excited about, and usually the prompts that I have, even though they're repeats or whatever, I'm still excited about them. They're things that I want to read. They're things that I put in there for me to inspire my reading. So I thought maybe I just won't play my TBR game this month. And then I filmed a TBR that was, just some priority reads for November and some things that I was, hoping to tackle. I'm planning on participating in Bucket Listathon. So I was like, I'll just have a pile of possibilities for Bucket Listathon because I want to play the game board as we go along. And that also didn't feel good. And I think I need a break, is basically. So I've come up with the idea of no content November for me personally. I'm just planning on posting this video, and I'm not making content in November, but I'm not planning on posting anything. I'm planning on trying to get a little bit ahead so that I can enjoy the holidays in December, because usually I end up doing Vlogmas. I don't think I'm going to do that exactly, but I do have a lot of content that I'm excited to put out in December. But both my professional and personal life were very hectic in October, and doing a competitive readathon on top of that was not great for just me and my creative brain. I just feel like I need to refill my cup a little bit. So I'm gonna take November off. Don't expect to see like anything from me. I'm thinking maybe I'll do sprints like a couple times just to kind of stay in the space, and also because I like chatting with you guys on sprints. I did sprints Monday nights in my time during Fablen, and I really had a good time with that. So I might do that a few times in November, just to kind of do that and keep up with everyone, because I love keeping up with all of you, but I just truly feel burnt out on like making and editing videos right now and need some time. And I think I need it across the board with some stuff. But I have done this before where I take some time off, either a couple of weeks or a month or whatever. But I have never felt the overwhelming need for it quite as much as I do right now. So I'm planning on coming back in December with my end of year content and such, but that is an intense time usually. So I'm thinking I'm going to take November off and just kind of have a few things that I can have pre-planned, have pre-made, you know, but also have a little more space to plan that out, and to come up with ideas, because I really didn't like some of the content that I was coming up with in October just as ideas. Like, I didn't have the spark to make them. I didn't have the drive to really feel like making them. Even if I thought they were good ideas, I didn't feel like I was executing them well. I started to film a skit for the beginning of my November TBR, like I have done a few times, and that didn't work out. So we're just gonna reset in November, give myself a little bit of time. I don't know. It's just been an interesting month this month, and I think it's just one of those things where I've been telling you guys about how much I'm working, and also like I've been in this class that I'm reading Octavia Butler for, and that's all fine and everything. I'm really enjoying the class, but I'm stretching my books out much longer than I would for the class, and it's just like kind of messing with my reading like rhythm. So I think I'm going to take the rest of November off, finish out the class. That's the plan. So I have a few, like I said, I am going to be participating in Bucket Listathon, and I do have a few priorities for that. I'm going to focus on my physical TBR. I'm also going to focus on the 5 remaining books I have on my self-destruct list. That's supposed to expire December 1st, but I might extend it through the end of the year and then like make a new list in January so that I can like wrap everything up and then start fresh in January. So I'm thinking that might be a little extended. And then I have 2 books on my 5-star predictions list that I haven't touched yet, and I would really like to. So I'm hoping I can work either those in, or maybe one a month, maybe like one for November, one for December. We'll see. But those are my priorities for Bucket Listathon that Danny from Danny Dabbles is hosting. And that is my wrap up for November. This is how my bingo board looks at the end of the month. This was a really successful reading month. Just this last like 10 days or so of October have really just been a lot. So yeah, that's my thoughts. That's what's going on with me. I will see you all in December. Like I said, I'll probably do some sprints or something, so don't worry, I'm not going away, but I just need to take a break from like pre-filmed videos, vlogs, all that stuff, as far as like the crunch time for a little while, and then we'll be back. And should I show you my stack? I think I showed you the stack of books last month, so we're going to show you it this month too. All right, there we go. The stack of everything I read in October, except for City of Brass. That was a DNF. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any thoughts or feelings or want to share anything about what I talked about today over the course of October, please let me know, and I will see you all in 30 days.